Hello and welcome, David. Nice to have you on. Obviously, you worked at Almeria with Darwin Nunez. I believe you arrived at the club around October, November time, no? Uh,
Mhm.
so Darwin had been there at the club for a few months already. What was were you aware of him when you came to the club, and what was your first impression of him?
No, I didn't know about the squad that the team had. We have to learn it really quick because we jumped to the club in just 3 days. But of course, in the first couple of trainings, we can recognize the potential that we had, and he has already, of course.
Yeah, what stood out for you about him on the training sessions?
Well, he showed a big potential, big sprint, big intensity, high pace, and of course, with his body high, because he's a very tall guy, and it was a really big surprise for us that he could do this change of pace in shorter space and short time.
Yeah, he's someone who's technically quite good on the ball. Was that something that you noticed straight away?
Well, he improved a lot. He improved the different movements because also when we arrived, he was also always asking the ball in the space, and we try also a little bit to promote that he can back a little bit and to be combinative with the number 10 and with the number 8.
Yeah, at the time when you arrived, he was still kind of settling in. But was there any difficulty in terms of settling in at the time? Was there something you needed to work on in terms of that?
Well, we were with all the players, we were trying to make a special rapport for every one of them, and then we analyze with our model of game with points, particularly every player has to make potential, and then one of the points that we spoke with him, and he also had inside himself what the attacking the space in the back of the defenders, because in La Liga 2 there is high pressing, there is high intensity, and most of the defenders you can attack them to find the spaces behind the defensive line.
Hmm. And he feels like a player who needs a bit of time to adapt. Would you say that's fair? Obviously, you mentioned that he needed to adapt to the La Liga style of play, but also when he went to Benfica, it took him one season and then another season to really start scoring goals. And at Almeria as well, I think he only started scoring goals in the second half of the season. Do you
Mhm.
think that's fair? He needs some time to adapt all the time.
Well, every player needs to adapt to know the teammates, and to recognize the potential of the teammates and how they can give you the passes, and of course, for that you need the time, and you cannot say that in 3 seconds you are going to be adapted.
Yeah.
But he is very clever guy. He is very understandable guy who can learn easy and fast, and I'm sure that it's going to be his third experience in Europe. And for that, I'm sure that the process of adapting is going to be much more faster than before.
Yeah, he also feels like someone who needs confidence as well. He is someone who has a lot of confidence in himself, and he gets better the more confident he gets. Do you think that's fair as well?
Yeah, I think he's such a personality that he believes in himself because it's true, it's it's easy for him to believe in himself, when you are so good as him, But in the end, of course, with the quality of his teammates, it's going to be much more easy for him to find positions to score than
Mm.
before. For example, in Almeria, for sure.
Yeah. In terms of off the pitch, how did he? Almeria was obviously his first experience coming from Uruguay to Europe. How did he adapt? Was it an easy adaptation off the pitch in terms of the city and the life in Europe?
Yeah, of course, Almeria is a really quiet city. It's not a big population; it's a small one. His character is very quiet also at the same time, and of course he adapted very well. It's not a city where the fans stop you in every corner. And then you can make a easy life when you are a football player or when you are a coach. And I think for him was really easy to adapt because also the language is the same. It's not quite different. It's completely he didn't have to learn any special word for that, and for that reason he adapted very well in Almeria.
Do you think that will suit him at Liverpool as well, because it's not one of the biggest cities in England? So there is, some he can have some quiet time, some in some places. So do you think that's something that will suit him in England if he comes to Liverpool?
I think he's going to be very fast in this adaptation. He came to Benfica where he should learn Portuguese, and for sure it's easier to learn Portuguese from a Spanish speaker. But in the end, he's really clever. He's really young, and he has a big motivation and big way to improve in the language and also in the pitch.
Yeah, and I know you had some experiences with him off the pitch as well while you were in Almeria. There's this famous story, I think you've told it many times now, about when you spotted him in a phone shop and he picked out a model that was maybe a bit humble for a player like him. And can you tell me a bit more about that story?
Well, it was. I went inside with my wife. In that moment, we were inside, and we found him inside. He was inside the shop when I arrived, and we start to make the jokes. That what are you doing there? You are going to buy me a mobile phone, or what is the present? If you want to play, you have to buy this kind of games that we are doing. And I asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he told me, "No, I'm going to buy a phone for my wife, my mother." And I said, "Okay, nice." And that's it. This is what the simple history that we were in the same position. He was buying for his mother. I was buying for my wife. At the same point, but the model of the phone was a little bit different.
Yeah, and he's someone who seems to. I've watched a few interviews with him. He seems someone like he's really family orientated. He owes a lot to his family, and I think he's very humble in that regard. That he pays them back a lot as well.
Yeah, he's very very familiar guy. He is very friendly. He's very positive guy. He's open to listen. He's open to work, and it's something that the coaches will love. Players like that, that you can speak, that they are listening, that they are not thinking that they know everything. And I think this is one of the reasons that he became so good and with a very big potential.
Yeah, that's his attitude in the training. He always wants to work. Was he
Mhm.
someone who stayed behind after the training sessions as well to maybe work on something that he needed to?
Of course. Yeah, he was a player that always was trying to improve himself, asking what is the best way to do something better every day, And then, of course, when he was missing in some actions in the training, he didn't like it, and he tried to improve, and he tried to be better every day.
Yeah, I think for me it reminds me of Liverpool players are known as mentality monsters. They all have come from hard backgrounds, difficult backgrounds, and in spite of that, they've persevered and they have this voracious appetite to improve. Do you think he has that sort of mentality monster angle to him as well? He's someone who works hard and he's ready to take on any challenge in front of him.
Definitely, yes. I think he I don't know exactly, because this is a private life, but
Yeah.
when you are in the top and when you are arriving to that position, it's because you work really hard. It's not easy, it's not cheap in terms of work hard to arrive to the point that he is right now, and I'm sure that he is not going to lose this opportunity to become one of the biggest number 9 in the world. He is already, I'm sure about that, but of course, when you make this a step forward with a better club, with more responsibility, with more pressure, with more capacity to get better titles, I'm sure that he is not going to lose this opportunity, and he's going to show his big potential that he has already inside.
Yeah, obviously you saw a lot of him on the pitch as well in action. If what type of number 9 is he? Who would you compare him to maybe in the modern game if you had to someone who's never seen him play before?
I cannot compare with nobody, you know, because he has many good things that in the end, as physically, he's amazing. He's very fast. He's thin. He can fight with his body also at the same time. He can stop suddenly. He can start to run at the same time. He has a really good shoot. We can say with both legs, and then in the end, he's so powerful that for that defender, because also I was a central defender, it's very complicated for a central defender to stop a player like this, because he can ask the ball in the foot, he can ask the ball in the space, and then you never know what he's going to do, you know. And then in the end, when he's doing with the ball, he has good qualities. When he is going close to the area, he can shoot from outside, he can shoot from inside, he can stop and give a pass. You know, you never know what he's going to do.
Where do you think he still needs to work on? What area of his game have you watched him recently? Where do you think he needs to improve? If you could highlight something.
Well, in the end, I think he always has to improve things that the central forward has to be always very concentrated, and he always has to be very awareness about the mistake of the defenders, you know, because sometimes many goals of the number 9 becomes because the defender make a mistake, or you can make some kind of anticipation. You know, this is something that the number 9, you have to work with them every training, you know, every season, because in the end they get confidence, and then you have to expect that the defenders can make a mistake, you know.
Yeah, and were you surprised that he moved to Benfica when there was interest in him at Almeria? I think Barcelona. You've worked at Barcelona in the past. I think Barcelona were also interested, and some other clubs do. I mean, obviously, in hindsight, it's easy to say he made the right move, but were you surprised to see him move to Benfica?
I think it was surprise everything from him, you know, because it's a surprise that he came to Almeria with this amount of money that Almeria paid for him. It was a surprise that from second division team went to Benfica, and now it's not a surprise that from Benfica goes to Liverpool, you know. And then it's going to be because everybody knows about him, everybody see his matches, but when he was in Almeria, I'm sure that not many people know about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of coming to Liverpool, where do you think he will fit in at the club? Do you think he suits the club's style of play, and the way he plays, the way I think he's quite good at pressing the ball and stuff like that? Do you think that suits Liverpool, the way he plays?
I'm completely sure that the specialists of Liverpool know more than me about this, but in terms of attitude, 100%. He is a player that he is going to make the pressing that the coach will ask to do, you know, and he will learn in the way that they want or they expect, but he's not going to be a player that he's going to walk, or he's not going to give 200% in the effort.
Yeah, and in terms of the Premier League, do you think he's ready for that challenge? I mean, he's a big boy, but you know, the Premier League is very physical in that regard. Is he ready for that challenge?
I think yes, because every time he makes this step forward, and probably the step that he did now is the shortest one, you know, because a step that from Almeria to Benfica maybe is a bigger, you know, because the distance of Almeria to Benfica is much bigger distance than Benfica to Liverpool, probably, you know. But of course, you are going inside the elite and the top 5 teams or 10 teams in the world, you know. And then in the end, of course, these steps are much more difficult to do, you know, in the end. But I'm completely sure that he can adapt, or he's already adapted to the style of the Premier League, for sure.
I noticed when watching his goals from Almeria, like you mentioned, he ran behind the defenders a lot into open spaces, and he's quite good at that. And obviously, Liverpool have centre backs like Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate or Joel Matip who can play those long balls over the top. Do you think that's something we will see him sort of bring on from his Almeria days to Liverpool as well?
Well, in the end, I'm sure that the defenders of the Premier League, the opponent teams, already they know him, you know, because it was a big popular that he moves from Benfica with this period that the transfer are very difficult in the world right now. And I'm sure that everybody's aware about him and what is his potential. And for that, in the beginning, maybe he will have some difficulties because everybody's going to expect this kind of balls. But when they see that also he can receive the ball in the foot, and then they will have this kind of depths to go to make pressing to him or to wait for the long ball, But I'm sure that he is going to find a way, and he is going to do many actions to make surprise to the opponents for sure.
With him at the club, did you work on him trying to be a bit different and not just always running behind the defenders? Did you work on him, sort of being multifaceted in his play so he can work on other areas to sort of hold up the play behind the defense and bring the ball forward in terms of dribbling and stuff? Did you work on this kind of thing?
Yeah, we work for the game style that we had in Almeria and the trainings that we were doing. This is a combinative with a positional games, a little bit close to Barcelona and also Real Madrid because the head coach was Guti. He came from Real Madrid and I came from Barcelona. It was a nice mix, but of course, as you know, Guti is a really genius guy, a player, and at the same time as a coach. And for that reason, we make many positional games. And of course, in these games, he should be aware and he should know how to manage the ball in the short distance. He's not always asking for the ball in the space that he comes from himself, from the youth probably. And in Almeria, we try to increase the capacity of the player to make more combinative and associative game style.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think as well, I noticed that when he went to Benfica, he kind of sometimes played as a left winger. Do you think he could potentially do that at Liverpool as well because of his speed? Do you think he could suit a winger role potentially?
Yeah, potentially he can do it, but I think his best is a number 9. But for sure, the coaches in Liverpool will find his best position. But in the time that he was in Almeria, for us was very important as a number 9 because he can run in all directions. Almost 360. But when he is in the line, maybe he is a little bit more limited. But of course, he has big qualities and he can adapt as a winger as well.
And finally, I think this is probably the most difficult question to answer, but I mean, obviously, do you think he's worth the 100 million euros price tag that Liverpool are paying for him? Do you think he will pay that money off for Liverpool in the long term?
Well, this is very difficult to say. I think that the time will give us the answer. But if I have 100 million euros, of course, I will bring him to my team also. But my team doesn't have this money to spend, and of course, we couldn't bring him. But the market is like this. When you are in the top, when you are probably one of the 3 best number 9 actually in the world, you have to take a little bit the money and to put on the table.
Absolutely. Thank you, David, for joining me, and all the best in Cyprus with your team. And hopefully you have a lot of success next season. So I wish you all the best. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Bye.